Make a little bit of sense out of this unit on ancient art for you. It starts with something like this, and basically my dilemma was, where do we begin talking about ancient art? And I think the simplest place is probably to start thinking and talking about ancient man, because it seems that from the very beginning of time, from the very beginning of man at least, there has been this need to, I don't know, self-expression, I guess. Artifacts and art has seemed to be seamlessly, as long as I'm using that word, intertwined with early man. So to do this, we're going to go back and talk about ancient man. Now I'm avoiding things like Adam, but I'm going to talk about the first culture of man. And in doing that, we can't ignore this wonderful theory of Afrocentric uh, origins of man. Now, I guess the opponent or the other popular theory is a simultaneous theory, but let's explore this. Here's the skull of an ancient man, as you might expect. Let's see. And when we talk about the Afrocentric, it's exactly that, right here in the center of Africa, this culture of man, and I've put Adam there, but it's in quotation marks if you can see it. This culture of man begins. And then you can see, and if you can read this here, I know you can read it in your own files if you'll upload this, or download this rather. You can see how man begins this great trek, as it were, from this part of Africa and gradually moves to different areas and populations as the area becomes friendly and becomes able to sustain cultures of man or humans at that time. This is the Afrocentric. Now, there was a wonderful man, still living, by the name of Dr. Spencer Wells, and he did a film not too long ago called The Journey of Man, and that's what this is based on, this map. And what he discovered, he's a biologist, I think, and what he discovered was you can look at a particular gene marker, a little trace thing on DNA genes, and you can find the reoccurrence of this particular marker and actually trace your descendants. And that's what he's done here to show that from this first culture, you can go to these different places on the globe and find people there and in some way find that same marker on their genetic makeup. In other words, you can find great, 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 and so on, grandsons of the first man that came here. Now, I'm not saying sons and grandsons without thinking about it. Unfortunately, this particular marker only occurs in males, so it's only something they can see with that Y chromosome. Here's a group of descendants from that first man, and these particular young men are all in Africa, and in fact can go back all those thousands of years to that first man that we're tracing. Here's a man that has that same marker and comes from Australia. That was another area. In fact, the Australians will argue heatedly that that's where the first culture came from, and they moved out to Africa and so on from there. I'm not sure that I know one way or the other. Excuse me. Up into Mongolia, parts of Asia, China certainly. Here's a young man who bears that same genetic marker and his mother. An Eskimo from across the Bering Straits, of course, up into what we call Alaska today. This man has that same gene. And here's Dr. Wells himself. And you can't see it very well, but here in the background, I think there's a link that I hope is still working on the discussion board that will show you a little bit more about him and talk about his research. But he has this nifty little helicopter, and he just has his whole lab in there. And there's I think his van there that meets him, but he jumps in his little lab. He's got these little DNA machines in there, and he helicopters off to wherever he's going to check, and he runs in and takes blood samples right there and gets the results immediately. He was pretty excited about this when he was able to trace this and identify this particular gene, but